I never thought I'd be the kind of person who records conversations, but here we are. I'm a 22-year-old senior at State University, majoring in psychology with a minor in neuroscience, and until 3 weeks ago, I thought I had my life figured out. I was pulling a 3.8 GPA, had been accepted into 2 graduate programs, and was on track to finish my capstone project with flying colors. Then Professor Hammond decided to blow up my entire academic career because he couldn't keep it in his pants. Let me back up. Professor Hammond taught advanced cognitive psychology, a required course for my major. He was one of those professors everyone either loved or hated, charismatic, young for a tenured professor at maybe 38, and he had this way of making complex theories sound like he was telling you secrets about the universe over coffee. I'll admit, I was one of the students who actually enjoyed his class. Not in a creepy way, just in a, finally, someone who makes this subject interesting way. I participated in discussions, I did well on assignments, and I genuinely thought he respected my work. The problem started on April 3rd. I remember the exact date, because it was the day of our final exam, worth 40% of our grade. I'd spent 2 weeks preparing, had barely slept the night before going over my notes, and I felt ready. The exam was scheduled from 2 p.m. to 5 p.m. in the usual lecture hall. I got there at 1:45, sat in my usual spot 3 rows from the front, and waited. Professor Hammond arrived at 1:55, which was already unusual because he was normally annoyingly punctual. He looked frazzled, kept checking his phone, and when he started handing out the exams, his hands were actually shaking a little. I remember thinking maybe he was sick or something. The exam was comprehensive, 6 essay questions, 2 case studies to analyze, and a section on experimental design. Brutal, but fair. I dove in immediately. I was on question 4, really getting into this analysis of dual process theory, when Professor Hammond's phone buzzed loudly on his desk. He grabbed it, and I saw his whole face light up in this way that made me uncomfortable to witness. He typed something quickly, then stood up and started pacing near the windows. At 3:30, right when I was transitioning to question 5, he suddenly announced, "All right everyone, I need to step out for about 15 minutes. Keep working, honor code applies, you know the drill." Weird, but whatever. Professors are human. Maybe he had an emergency. He left, and the room stayed quiet except for the sound of frantic writing and the occasional sigh of stress. But 15 minutes passed. Then 30. Then 45. At 4:15, with only 45 minutes left in the exam period, he burst back into the room. And I mean burst. He looked completely different, his hair was messed up, his tie was loosened, and there was what looked like lipstick on his collar. Bright red, impossible to miss. A few students noticed and started whispering. Okay, sorry about that," he said, not sounding sorry at all. He sounded giddy, almost drunk, though I don't think he was. "Keep working, you're doing great." I tried to focus, but something felt wrong. I powered through question 5 and started on 6, checking my watch obsessively. At 4:50, with 10 minutes left, I was finishing my last paragraph when Professor Hammond suddenly stood up and said, "All right folks, time's up. I need everyone to pass their exams forward right now." "It's only 4:50, someone called out. "We have until 5. "Change of plans," he said, and he was checking his phone again, smiling at the screen. "I have somewhere I need to be. Pass them forward now, please." The room erupted in protests. People weren't finished. I wasn't finished. I had one more paragraph to write, and I wanted to review my answers. But he was insistent, almost aggressive about it. "Now, please. I don't have time for this." We all reluctantly passed our exams forward. I handed mine to the guy in front of me, feeling sick about not being able to finish properly. Professor Hammond gathered all the papers into a messy stack, didn't even bother to organize them or count them, just shoved them into his briefcase, grabbed his coat, and practically ran out of the room. "Good luck, everyone, have a great summer," he called over his shoulder. We all sat there in stunned silence for a moment, then everyone started talking at once about how unprofessional that was, how they didn't get to finish, how he disappeared for almost an hour in the middle of our final exam. I was pissed, but I figured, okay, whatever. At least it's over. I'd done well on the parts I'd completed. I'd be fine. 2 days later, I got an email. I was at my apartment, finally relaxing after the stress of finals week, when the notification popped up on my phone. It was from Professor Hammond, sent at 11:47 p.m. "Dear Ms. Patterson," it read. "I regret to inform you that I have no record of receiving your final exam. As the exam was worth 40% of your final grade, and as per university policy, a missing exam is recorded as a 0, your final grade in advanced cognitive psychology is an F. If you believe this is in error, please contact me during office hours next semester. Regards, Professor Derek Hammond." I literally stopped breathing. I read it 3 times, 4 times, 5 times. No record of receiving my exam. I had handed it in. I had physically given it to the guy in front of me, who'd passed it forward with all the others. This had to be a mistake. I immediately replied, "Professor Hammond, there must be some error. I absolutely handed in my exam on April 3rd. I completed the majority of it and submitted it when you collected all papers at 4:50 p.m. Please check again. This is extremely urgent as an F in this course will destroy my GPA and affect my graduate school acceptances." I didn't sleep that night. I kept refreshing my email, waiting for a response. Nothing. The next morning, still nothing. Finally, at 3 p.m. the following day, he responded. "Ms. Patterson, I have checked multiple times. Your exam is not in my possession. I understand this is disappointing, but I cannot grade what I do not have. The grade stands. DH. I felt like I was going to throw up. An F. In my major. In my senior year. This would drop my GPA to maybe a 3.3, and both graduate programs I'd been accepted to had GPA requirements I would no longer meet. My entire future was evaporating because of a lost exam." I went to his office hours the next day. The door was open, and he was sitting at his desk, looking relaxed and happy, scrolling through his phone. When I knocked, he glanced up with this neutral expression. "Ms. Patterson. Come in." I sat down, trying to keep my voice steady. "Professor Hammond, I need to talk about my exam. I know I submitted it." I handed it to Trevor Chen, who sits in front of me. He can confirm. Other students can confirm. I was there, I completed most of the exam, I turned it in when you collected everything. He leaned back in his chair, fingers steepled. "I understand you're upset, but I've checked thoroughly. Your exam simply isn't there." "Then something happened to it," I said. "You were in a rush, you left in the middle of the exam for almost an hour, you came back and cut our time short by 10 minutes. Maybe in the chaos, my exam got lost. That's not my fault. I should be allowed to retake it, or we can figure out an alternative assessment." His expression hardened. "Are you suggesting I was unprofessional during your exam administration?" No, I'm just saying. Because that sounds like an accusation, Ms. Patterson. And I don't appreciate accusations." He leaned forward. "I have been teaching for 12 years. I have never lost a student's exam. If your exam is not in my possession, the most logical explanation is that you did not, in fact, submit it." "That's not true." My voice was rising, and I tried to calm down. "Professor, please. This F will ruin everything I've worked for. I've been accepted to graduate programs that will revoke their offers if my GPA drops. You know my work in this class. You know I wouldn't just not hand in a final exam worth 40% of my grade. Please, just let me retake it or do an alternative assignment. No, he said simply. That would be unfair to the other students who took the exam under standard conditions. The grade stands. Standard conditions. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. You left for an hour during our exam. You cut our time short. You were checking your phone and smiling while we were trying to focus. What about that was standard? His face went red. You need to leave my office now. Professor Hammond. Now, Ms. Patterson. Before I report you for harassment. I left, shaking with anger and fear. I went straight to the department head, Dr. Susan Chen, and filed a formal complaint. I explained everything, the missing exam, the professor's behavior during the test, his refusal to allow me any alternative assessment. Dr. Chen was sympathetic but cautious. These are serious allegations, she said. I'll need to investigate. In the meantime, the grade will remain as is until the investigation concludes. How long will that take? I asked. These things can take weeks, sometimes months. I don't have months. My graduate program acceptance letters require final transcripts by June 1st. She gave me this pitying look. I understand, but I have to follow proper procedure. I'll do my best to expedite this. A week passed. I was a wreck. I couldn't eat, couldn't sleep, couldn't focus on anything else. My other finals didn't go great because I was so stressed about this situation. My mom kept calling, asking if I'd gotten my final grades yet, and I couldn't bring myself to tell her what was happening. Then, on a Tuesday evening, I got a call from an unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something told me to pick up. Hello. Hey, is this Sarah Patterson? A male voice I didn't recognize. Yes, who's this? This is Trevor Chen. From CogPsych. Listen, I heard through some people that you're having issues with Professor Hammond about the final exam. Yeah, I said, my heart starting to race. Yeah, he says he never received my exam, but I know I handed it in. You were sitting right in front of me. That's what I wanted to talk to you about, Trevor said. I remember you handing your exam to me. I passed it forward to Jenna Martinez, and she passed it to the front row. Your exam definitely made it into that pile. Could you tell that to Dr. Chen? I filed a complaint, and they are investigating, but I need people to corroborate. There's more, Trevor interrupted. The reason I'm calling is because my girlfriend, Rebecca. She's a TA for the English department, and she was at the Hilton Bar downtown on the night of April 3rd, the day of our exam. She saw Professor Hammond there. I didn't understand at first. Okay. Sarah, he was there at like 4:30 in the afternoon. She specifically remembers because she thought it was weird that a professor would be day drinking on a Tuesday during finals week. And he wasn't alone. He was with a woman, not his wife. Rebecca knows his wife from some faculty event. He was all over this other woman, making out with her at the bar, very obviously on a date. Everything clicked into place. The hour-long absence during our exam. The messed up hair, the loosened tie, the lipstick on his collar. The way he'd rushed us through the end of the exam. The timestamps, he'd left at 3:30, been gone until 4:15. The Hilton was a 10-minute drive from campus. He left our final exam to go on a date, I said slowly. That's what it looks like, Trevor said. And Rebecca said they were definitely getting a room, because she saw them go to the front desk and come back with a key card. He was at a hotel with another woman while we were taking our final. Oh my God, I breathed. Listen, I don't know if this helps with your situation, but I thought you should know. And if you need me to vouch that you definitely turned in your exam, I will. That's bullshit what he's doing to you. Thank you, I managed to say. Thank you so much. After I hung up, I sat there processing. Professor Hammond had abandoned our final exam to hook up with someone at a hotel. He'd been so distracted and rushed when he got back that he'd messed up collecting the exams, probably lost mine in his hurry to get back to his date, and now he was covering his ass by claiming I never submitted it. And to make matters worse, he was married. I'd met his wife at a department event freshman year. I was furious. But more than that, I was terrified. It was his word against mine, and he had all the power. Even with Trevor's testimony, what could I prove? That's when I made the decision. I was going to record everything from now on. I needed protection, needed evidence, needed something concrete. I downloaded a recording app on my phone that day. The investigation dragged on. Dr. Chen interviewed other students, including Trevor, who confirmed I'd been at the exam and had submitted my papers. But Professor Hammond was sticking to his story. He never received my exam, therefore I got a 0. He was untouchable, tenured, respected in the department. Meanwhile, my life was falling apart. I got a letter from my top choice graduate program. We regret to inform you that due to your final transcript not meeting our GPA requirements, we must withdraw our offer of admission. The second program sent a similar letter 3 days later. 4 years of work. 4 years of perfect attendance, extra credit, research assistantships, sleepless nights studying. Gone? Because one professor couldn't keep his dick in his pants during a final exam. I was sitting in my apartment, crying over these rejection letters, when I decided I needed to try one more time. I needed to confront him again, but this time, I'd be recording. I needed him to say something, anything, that would prove what he'd done. I went to his office hours the next Monday. My phone was in my jacket pocket, recording app running. My hands were shaking as I knocked on his door. Come in, he called. He looked irritated to see me. Ms. Patterson. I thought we'd resolved this issue. We haven't resolved anything, I said, sitting down without being invited. You gave me an F for an exam I submitted. You're destroying my future over your mistake. It wasn't my mistake, he said coldly. You didn't submit the exam. I did submit it. Multiple students have confirmed I was there and submitted my work. The only explanation is that you lost it, and instead of admitting that, you're throwing me under the bus. His jaw clenched. I don't lose student work. Then where is it? I challenged. Where's my exam? I don't know, Ms. Patterson. Perhaps you should ask yourself that question. Are you seriously suggesting I took my own exam back somehow? When you collected everything and left immediately. I felt my voice rising but couldn't stop it. You left in the middle of our test for an hour. You came back with lipstick on your collar. You rushed us through the last 10 minutes because you had somewhere to be. You were distracted and careless, and my exam got lost in the chaos. Just admit it. His face went white, then red. Where did you, who have you been talking to? Does it matter? You left our final exam to go hook up with someone. That's what happened, isn't it? You were so focused on your hot date that you screwed up collecting the exams, lost mine, and now you're covering it up by failing me. He stood up abruptly. Get out of my office. Not until we figure this out. Get out? Professor Hammond, please, I said, trying a different tactic. Please, just let me retake the exam. Or do an alternative assessment. I won't report the other stuff. I won't make a fuss about how you administered the test. I just need a fair shot at passing this class. Are you trying to blackmail me? His voice was dangerous now. No. I'm trying to find a solution where You're trying to blackmail me into giving you a grade you didn't earn. That's what this is. You didn't submit your exam, you failed the class, and now you're making up lies and conspiracy theories to avoid taking responsibility for your own negligence. That's not what happened. Get out, he shouted. Get out now, or I'm calling campus security and reporting you for attempted blackmail and academic intimidation. I left, tears streaming down my face, but my phone had captured everything. The next day, I was in Dr. Chen's office again, this time with the recording. I also brought printouts of the email timestamps, Trevor's statement, and a written account from Rebecca about seeing Professor Hammond at the Hilton. Dr. Chen listened to the recording with an increasingly grim expression. When it finished, she was quiet for a long moment. Ms. Patterson, I need to be honest with you. This complicates things considerably. How? It proves he's lying. It proves he was negligent during our exam. It proves he became defensive when confronted, she corrected carefully. But recording someone without their knowledge is legally complicated. Depending on the state, it might not be admissible in any formal proceeding. So he just gets away with it. I was incredulous. I didn't say that. But I need to handle this delicately. Professor Hammond is tenured, and these allegations, if proven, would be grounds for serious disciplinary action. That means lawyers, unions, a whole process. And it means I need ironclad evidence. What more evidence do you need? I practically shouted. Let me make some calls, she said. In the meantime, I'm going to strongly advise Professor Hammond that the grade should be changed to an incomplete while we sort this out. That will at least buy you time with your graduate programs. It wasn't enough, but it was something. The incomplete was processed 2 days later, and I sent desperate emails to both graduate programs explaining the situation, begging them to reconsider. One never responded. The other said they'd keep my application under review pending resolution. But here's where things got really bad. 4 days after my recorded conversation with Professor Hammond, I was walking to my car after my shift at the campus library. It was around 9 p.m., dark, and the parking lot was mostly empty. I had my keys in my hand, my bag over my shoulder, thinking about how I was going to explain this whole mess to my parents, when I heard footsteps running up behind me. I turned, and before I could react, someone shoved me hard. I went down, my hands scraping against the asphalt, my bag flying. I screamed, and the person, I couldn't see their face, they were wearing a hoodie, grabbed my bag and ran. My phone was in that bag. My wallet. My keys. Everything. Campus security found me sitting there, bleeding from my palms and knees, in shock. They called an ambulance because I'd hit my head when I fell, and I needed to be checked for a concussion. At the ER, while they were cleaning my wounds and doing neuro checks, I kept thinking about the timing. 4 days after I'd recorded Professor Hammond. 4 days after I'd accused him of negligence and misconduct. Maybe I was being paranoid. Maybe it was just a random mugging. But the person hadn't even tried to grab my bag until after they'd pushed me down. They'd targeted me specifically. The police report was filed, but the officer was skeptical. Probably just a junkie looking for quick cash, he said. They see a woman alone at night, easy target. We'll check campus security cameras, but honestly, these cases rarely get solved. Chen from the ER, explaining what had happened. I also mentioned that my recording, which I'd stupidly only had saved on my phone, not backed up anywhere, was now gone unless she'd kept a copy. She called me 30 minutes later. Sarah, I'm so sorry. Are you okay? I'm fine, I said, which was a lie. My head was pounding, my hands were wrapped in gauze, and I felt violated and scared. Do you still have the recording I played for you? No, she said, and my stomach dropped. You played it from your phone. I didn't make a copy because I wasn't sure of the legal implications. Sarah, I'm so sorry. I wanted to scream. Instead, I just said, okay. Thank you for letting me know. Listen, Dr. Chen said. With the mugging, if you're feeling unsafe, we can arrange for campus security escorts, we can. I don't think it was random, I interrupted. Silence. Then, Sarah, what are you saying? I'm saying the timing is suspicious. I'm saying I just accused a tenured professor of serious misconduct. I had evidence recorded, and now that evidence is conveniently gone and I'm injured. I'm saying maybe I'm paranoid, but maybe I'm not. Those are very serious implications, Dr. Chen said carefully. Do you have any evidence that Professor Hammond was involved? No, I admitted. Just a bad feeling. I understand. But without evidence, I can't act on feelings. I'm going to continue my investigation with what I have, the student testimonies, the timeline of events. But Sarah, please be careful. And please, if you truly believe you're in danger, go to the actual police, not just campus security. I was released from the ER at 2 a.m. with a mild concussion, instructions to rest, and a prescription for pain medication I couldn't afford. My roommate picked me up, and when we got back to the apartment, I immediately went to my laptop and started writing down everything I could remember from the recording. Every word Professor Hammond had said, every inflection, every damning phrase. Then I did something probably stupid, but definitely necessary. I created a new email account, wrote up the entire story, the exam, the investigation, the recording, the mugging, and sent it to 10 different email addresses including my own, my parents', my roommate, and Dr. Chen. Subject line: if anything happens to me, read this. Paranoid? Maybe. But at that point, I was past caring. The next 2 weeks were a nightmare. I had to cancel all my cards, get a new phone, replace my license. I was jumpy and anxious, constantly looking over my shoulder. I couldn't focus on my remaining coursework. I felt like my entire life had been derailed, and for what? Because I'd been in the wrong place at the wrong time, enrolled in the wrong class, with the wrong professor, who'd decided to prioritize getting laid over his professional responsibilities. Then, 3 weeks after the mugging, I got a call on my new phone from Dr. Chen. Her voice sounded strained. Sarah, I need you to come to my office immediately. There's been a development. I practically ran across campus. When I got there, Dr. Chen wasn't alone. There was a woman I didn't recognize, professional looking in a suit, and a man who introduced himself as the university's legal counsel. Ms. Patterson, Dr. Chen began. This is Detective Maria Rodriguez. She's been investigating your mugging. My heart started pounding. Did you find who did it? Not exactly, Detective Rodriguez said. But we did find something interesting. During our investigation, we pulled security footage from various locations around campus on the night you were attacked. We couldn't get a clear look at your attacker, but we did notice something else. A vehicle that appeared multiple times throughout the evening, circling the area where you were attacked. She pulled out a tablet and showed me grainy security footage. A dark sedan, visible in several different camera angles, time-stamped throughout the evening. We ran the plates, she continued. The vehicle is registered to a Professor Hammond. The room seemed to tilt. What? Now, that doesn't prove he was involved in your attack, she said carefully. He could have been on campus for legitimate reasons. But combined with the other information Dr. Chen shared with me about your ongoing dispute with Professor Hammond, the timing raised enough red flags that I wanted to look deeper. And I could barely breathe. And I contacted the Hilton Hotel for records from April 3rd, the date of your exam. I explained we were investigating a potential crime and needed to verify an alibi. They confirmed that Derek Hammond checked into a room at 3:45 p.m. on that date. He checked out at 5:30 p.m. There it was. Confirmation that he'd left our final exam to have sex at a hotel. There's more, Detective Rodriguez said. Once I had that information, I went back to Professor Hammond and asked him directly about his whereabouts during your exam. He initially denied leaving campus, then when confronted with the hotel records, changed his story. Said he had a family emergency and had to step out briefly. That's a lie, I said. I know. I also spoke with the hotel staff. One of the bartenders remembered him quite clearly because of how, quote, handsy he was being with a woman who was definitely not his wife, who he's met at previous faculty events. The bartender's statement corroborates the account I received from a Rebecca Martinez, who was also at the hotel that day. My mind was reeling. So what happens now? Dr. Chen spoke up. Sarah, I owe you an apology. I should have pushed harder, faster on this investigation. Professor Hammond has been placed on immediate administrative leave pending a full review. The university's legal team will be conducting a thorough investigation into multiple violations, abandoning a final exam, engaging in an extramarital affair on university time, possible harassment, possible intimidation, and now, we are looking into whether he had any involvement in your attack. We haven't charged him with anything related to your mugging, Detective Rodriguez clarified. Yet. But his presence in the area that evening, combined with the timeline of events, has made him a person of interest. We are executing a warrant for his phone records and vehicle GPS data as we speak. I felt like I was in a dream. And my grade? The legal counsel spoke for the first time. Your incomplete will be changed to a grade based on your performance on all other assignments in the course, which, based on Dr. Chen's review, puts you at a solid A. Additionally, the university would like to offer you a formal apology and discuss compensation for the distress you've experienced. Compensation. We'll cover your medical bills from the ER visit. We'll also provide a letter to your graduate programs explaining the situation and vouching for your academic integrity. And if you choose to pursue legal action against Professor Hammond personally, the university will not stand in your way, though we also won't be able to provide direct support, as that could complicate our own internal proceedings. I sat there, trying to process it all. What about his wife? Does she know? Dr. Chen and Detective Rodriguez exchanged glances. Yes, Dr. Chen said quietly. She's been informed. They're apparently in the process of separating. Good, I thought viciously. Then felt guilty for thinking it. But not that guilty. Over the next week, more details emerged. Professor Hammond's phone records showed dozens of texts to a number belonging to a woman named Ashley Moreno on April 3, including several during the exact time frame of our exam. One text, sent at 3:42 p.m., just got to the hotel, room 412, can't wait to see you. Another at 4:20 p.m., that was amazing, wish I could stay longer, but have to get back to campus. The GPS data from his car confirmed he'd left campus at 3:28 p.m., arrived at the Hilton at 3:41 p.m., and left at 4:17 p.m., arriving back on campus at 4:27 p.m. He'd literally abandoned our final exam to have a quickie at a hotel. As for my exam, they never found it. The working theory was that in his distracted, rushed state, he'd either dropped it somewhere or accidentally thrown it away. My exam had probably ended up in a trash can at the Hilton, or in his car, or who knows where. 4 years of my academic career almost destroyed because of one misplaced exam, and a professor who couldn't admit he'd screwed up. The mugging investigation stalled. They couldn't prove Professor Hammond had been directly involved, though the circumstantial evidence was damning. His lawyer claimed he'd been on campus that evening for office work, and the timing was coincidental. Without a clear identification or physical evidence, the police couldn't charge him. But I knew. In my gut, I knew. Professor Hammond was fired. Technically his contract wasn't renewed, but same result. The university did their own investigation and found multiple policy violations. Abandoning a final exam, conducting personal affairs on university time, misuse of university resources, and creating a hostile academic environment. He tried to fight it, but the evidence was overwhelming. I got into a different graduate program. Not one of my original top choices, but a solid program that offered me a spot after receiving the university's letter explaining what had happened. My GPA was restored to a 3.8, with the A in Professor Hammond's class. I graduated on time, walked across that stage with my head high. But here's the thing nobody tells you about situations like this: even when you win, you don't really win. I still have nightmares about being shoved in that parking lot. I still flinch when I hear footsteps behind me at night. I still feel angry, furious, actually, that I had to fight so hard just to get what I deserved, just to have my work acknowledged, just to not be scapegoated for someone else's mistakes. Professor Hammond destroyed his career, his marriage, and nearly destroyed my future, all because he couldn't keep it in his pants for 3 hours. 3 hours. That's all he needed to maintain professionalism. 3 hours to do his job, to be present for his students, to handle our final exams with care. And you know what the worst part is? He never apologized. Not once. Even after everything came out, even after he lost his job and his wife left him, he maintained that I was being difficult and making mountains out of molehills. In his mind, he's the victim. I ruined his life by insisting on accountability. I'm in graduate school now. I'm doing well. I'm happy, mostly. But I still have that recording app on my phone, still running whenever I meet with a professor. I still document everything, save every email, keep receipts for every interaction. Because I learned the hard way that sometimes the people in power will lie, will cover their asses, will sacrifice you to protect themselves. And sometimes the only thing standing between you and injustice is a recording app and the stubborn refusal to let them get away with it. So yeah. My professor stole my exam because he had a hot date, ended up leaving me in the ER after I was mysteriously mugged when I had evidence against him, told me I was being difficult when I demanded accountability. And I recorded everything that happened after. And I'd do it all again if I had to.